I always wanted to make a YouTube channel, but the intro always scared me. Like, I'm like, how do you introduce yourself to a new part of the internet? And so I thought, well, maybe if I drink half a bottle of champagne, it will be less weird. So here we are. My name is Alle Mims. I am a theater artist living in New York City, and I graduated with an MFA in playwriting from Columbia in May of 2023. And I have been looking for a job ever since. It has been 14 months and many applications later, and I still don't have one, or at least one that will sustain me long enough to stay in the city. And it's getting to the point where if I don't find a job by October 1st, which is when my lease renews, I will have to leave the city. That's just like the reality of the situation. It's great motivation. I got this idea from Benulos, who bought some champagne to encourage her to meet her goals. Originally, I made the plan to buy a bottle of champagne and open it when I got a job, but I got discouraged and I was like, you know what? I'm going to celebrate something I can actually control. So I told myself to buy a bottle of champagne and celebrate whenever I got to 100 job applications. And that day has passed. So now we are opening this bottle of champagne and we are going to drink it while I talk about my job search, all my stats and everything, what I've learned, and how I'm able to survive in the most expensive city in America without a full-time job. How do you get this gold shit off? Woo! What is that an alert for? Oh, I'm supposed to go to Henrietta Hudson's tonight. I don't know if that's happening. I don't think I want this because it's going to be clanging. That's really good. Okay, let's talk about my stats. I bought this bottle when I was like 1 or 2 away from 100 applications, and that was 2 weeks ago. I'm now at 126 applications that I've done for 100 different companies, which means I've written close to 100 cover letters. I don't think it's quite that. I think it's probably high 60s, 70s. Someone told me that I should let ChatGPT write my cover letters, and I was like, no, I can't do that. I'm a writer. I'm like so against AI writing things like that. And they were like, those companies use AI to reject you. I keep track of all my stats through Notion, and then I put that into Excel if I need to do some weird like formula stuff. Out of 126 job applications, I received 16 interviews, which is about 13%, which is pretty good. I mean, every 10 applications I get 1 interview. Out of the 16 interviews, I've received 3 job offers, some of which I took, some of which I didn't, which I'll talk about in a second. And that's also pretty good, 2%. That means for every 100 jobs, I might get 2 job offers, and one of them will probably suck. I categorize my jobs into dream job, a great job, a fine job, and a joke of a job. Voiceover Alley popping in because I never actually said where I was applying. I am looking for a full-time social media or digital marketing position at an arts-related company. So when I talk about dream jobs, I'm talking about doing social media for Playbill or Broadway World. A great job might be doing social media part-time or an arts administration role, and a fine job would be something part-time, minimum wage, could be ushering for a theater or like retail in Manhattan. That's basically the scope I'm working with, okay? Okay. Back to the stats. I've applied to 17 dream jobs, 45 great jobs, 59 fine jobs, and 5 joke of a jobs. And usually those joke of a jobs, I don't realize that they're a joke of a job until I get to the interview or get the offer, and it's either not matching the job description, or it's a bit of a scam, it's paying very low but promising high tips, those types of things. Things that I would not recommend other people applying to, things that I would not accept if I were to get an offer from them. So those numbers were interesting to me because I applied to way more jobs that I would categorize as a dream job than I thought. It's like full-time, in the field I want, all of that kind of stuff. With these stats, I need to apply to 74 more jobs, and I will hopefully get 2 more offers out of that. It's depressing, but it's also kind of nice to see the numbers like that, to see that something is working. It's just a lot tougher than I was expecting. Before moving to New York, I worked in food service, I worked in nightlife, and I worked like at nonprofits, but I'd always gotten a job like through a friend or through meeting the boss, and they just happened to need someone. When it comes to service industry, I've always gotten hired on the spot. Even when I worked retail when I was like 19, 20, 21, Same thing, I walked in, did an interview, they called me later that day for the job. And so I am a little spoiled, but it makes sense because I'm not applying to retail. I'm not applying, well, I am. I'm applying to retail now, but I'm not applying to food service. I'm not working nightlife. And so it's just, it's harder. It's a lot harder to get hired at those jobs, in case you didn't know. So how am I able to survive here if I don't have a full-time job? A few factors that are important. Number one, budgeting. I'm sorry, it's boring, it's annoying, but you have to budget. I know my budget. I know how much I can spend in a week, in a month, and a quarter. Along those lines, something that I do that I feel like maybe other people don't is I never order out unless I'm sick or like I have like a friend visiting in town. If Emma comes to town, we're ordering chicken wings. Like I can't help it. I do occasionally get lunch out if I'm like working a double or if I'm going straight from one job to another. But other than that, I do not eat out. I only cook at home. I also cook very cheaply at home. A lot of cans, a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables, and that's pretty much it. What does get me is the bodega snacks. Those bodega candies. I eat peach rings several times a week. Luckily, those cost $2 fucking. So I also go nowhere that you have to pay a cover. Never. I've never paid a cover in the city, I don't think. I've paid for one dance party, I think. That was it. I did have a little bit of savings when I graduated, but honestly, my dog got sick like 2 weeks after graduation, and that took almost my entire savings. And even with my mom helping a little bit, it took my entire savings. I also have certain budgeting things just built into my veins. I have been thrifting since I was a child. A lot of my friends have like a shopping problem, and I can't relate. I think that saves more money than I realize. Budgeting, less spending, staying home, honestly. Like I said, I was supposed to go to Henrietta Hudson tonight. I don't think that's happening because I cannot be trusted around places where I can spend money. I just don't have self-control, so I just stay home. I also forgot to mention, I pay less than $1,000 for rent in Manhattan. It's about this much less than $1,000, but it is less than $1,000, and I live in Harlem. That is pretty unheard of. I have my own room. I do share a bathroom, but we do have washer dryer in unit. That is huge. And obviously, even though I'm on the job hunt, I have had jobs. I worked like 6 jobs, I think, while I was in grad school. And since graduating, I've had 5 jobs along with 5 streams of like freelance income, which varies very greatly month to month. I have my job at the Dramatists Guild Foundation, which is super, super helpful. It's not enough for me to live on, but it's very stable. I've worked there for 2 years, and so that's been the only consistent thing through this job hunt. I was also commissioned by the Griot to create an audio drama series available everywhere you get your podcasts. That was super fun. It was released earlier this year, so obviously I had a huge bump when it was released. We were doing more marketing, I was making videos, I was doing interviews, so I got to clock in for all of those hours. But then once they were sort of done with the marketing machine, I was let go, which was always going to be the plan. I worked at my friend's tech startup doing data entry for him, which was fine, but he wanted to move me into more like of the client side stuff, and at the end of the day, I just wasn't really interested in it. I still don't really know what that company does. I don't know, but it seems to be working out all right for him without me, so good job. And then I also worked at Columbia University, which I worked at while I was going there. I got rehired for the spring semester to be a social media manager for the theater department, but I ended up making social media for every program. Anytime they had anything they needed, I would do that for them. Unfortunately, that was a temporary position. I was a contractor, and so they did not renew my contract at the end. Out of the 3 offers I got, one was for a literal clown company. This falls under the joke of a job. Quite literally. I got bad vibes from this company right away. I'm sure if you live in New York and you're a performer of any kind, you know exactly what company I'm talking about. And hey, it works for some people. For me, it was not worth it to be around that many children that often for what they were offering for pay and then promising, oh, well, you're going to get tips, you're going to get tips, you're going to get paid for training. It wasn't enough. I have 2 hard no's, and that is childcare and waiting tables. Plus, the woman conducting the interview, which wasn't really an interview, it was more like a group session. It was just a bunch of us on Zoom listening to her talk. It felt like I was in a multi-level marketing meeting. I got bad vibes, and so I was like, thanks, no thanks. The other offer I got was for Blank Fitness to be a trainer, and this was great because they paid you for 2 weeks of training, and they hired me right away. And then I did my training on Zoom, but I had to still go into the club. But I was really happy for the 2 weeks of training. They put me on the floor for 1 week. I realized they wanted me to do way more work than was in the job description. They only paid you minimum wage unless you got a client, and then you got a pay bump just during that client. And I did the math of how much the client was paying versus how much we were getting paid. Blink keeps like 86% of the profits. If you work at Blink, you need to unionize. I'm not even kidding. If you're a trainer at Blink, you should be unionizing right now. The third offer I got was for the August Wilson Society as a researcher, and I did accept that because that is a dream job. Unfortunately, it is a very short amount of time. I'm basically being paid to write an essay about one of August Wilson's collaborators, and once that essay is done, I'll get paid just in one lump sum. I also get reimbursed if I do any travel for the research that I do. Obviously, that's an amazing job. Didn't even interview. They just hired me off of the resume and my cover letter and my recommendations. That was really great, and I'm really grateful for that opportunity. I wish it was full-time. I wish it paid more, but I'm really, really excited for it. And the 5 freelancing things I do. I'm a writer, I'm an actor, I do social media. Champagne's going in my head. I only have 4 things of freelance. It's writing, acting, being a reader for theaters, and social media. And those 4 streams bring in anywhere from $50 to $100 a month, usually less than that. But like, I was in a writer's group and that paid me. I did Pride Fest at the Tank. I was in a Shakespeare show, a couple Shakespeare shows, and those all paid. And so it's just a little bump, a little something to pay for my Metro card for the month, basically. Even though this is kind of a failed job search, I mean, I've gotten 3 offers. 2 of them I took, 1 of them I quit, and this one does not pay me enough to live. I have still learned a lot. I've learned that if a cover letter is painful to write, it's not worth it. Never have I written a shitty cover letter and still gotten an interview. It needs to be something that is like super easy for you to pull out, even if you're pulling out bullshit. I applied to 11 jobs at TJ Maxx on Monday. I wrote a beautiful cover letter for TJ Maxx. I don't know if anyone's gonna read it. I wrote that cover letter in 20 minutes or less, and because of that, I was able to apply to 11 jobs in one day. Applying for a job is a part-time job. I did not anticipate how many hours this was going to take me. Again, I'm used to applying and getting hired the same week, sometimes even the same day. So I was not at all prepared that even when interviews were going well, I still would have to wait a week or 2 weeks in between interviews, in between assignments, in between decisions. I wish I had started looking for a job during my last year, even though it was super stressful and I had my thesis and I still had 4 or 5 other jobs at the time. I really wish that I had started looking earlier. Always let everyone know that you're looking for a job. All your friends, your mentors, your professors, constantly telling people. I'm constantly telling my old bosses I'm looking for a job so that they think of me when a job becomes available. I also got a bunch of interviews because I posted a cover letter video online for Playbill. And I got an interview with Playbill, but I also got an interview with like 2 or 3 other companies who just saw that cover letter video and were like, hey, we would love to interview you as well. And honestly, I need to do that again. People like it when you put yourself out there. Having a buddy is crucial. Blake, shout out to Blake, I love you. Blake has literally held my hands as I have cried over a burger. They held my hand and they told me I was doing a good job. Shout out to the group chat. I can literally text them and be like, I need someone to pat my back and tell me I'm doing a good job, and they're like, I'm there. You really need that. I'm really lucky that Blake is also poor and looking for a job. And actually, another thing, I went in person to jobs with Blake, and I really thought that this was going to be really depressing. You remember that woman who like went viral, who was like, I'm not handing out my resumes and it's so embarrassing. I was fully expecting that experience. I told Blake if it went really badly, he had to record me crying on the internet because that would probably work better than any resume I could hand out. But honestly, we went to about 15 places. A third of them just weren't hiring. The other ones were, or they were about to start hiring. And about half of them, or maybe a little more, took our resumes. I handed out 8 resumes that day, which I was not expecting at all. Everyone was very kind, very nice. They gave us their names. They gave us like a bunch of hints. They were like, once you apply, call. Once you apply, send an email. Ask for Josh, ask for Jordan, ask for Jeremy. Those are the names of all the managers that work in retail in Soho. I'm still applying to those places I went to in person, so I can't tell you yet if I've gotten an interview. I did get an interview with Apple. You have an interview with them like next week, I believe. So that's exciting. Any way you can tip the odds in your favor, do it. You have to pace yourself. I think I submitted somewhere close to 50 applications in August of last year. And then I think I applied to 3 in September. I was so burnt out. Luckily at that point I had gotten a couple other gigs here and there, and so I could take a break from applying, but I wish I would have paced myself a little better in August so that I could have continued a good pace through September and the rest of the year, because I kind of fell off at the end of last year. Right now, my goal is whenever I sit down is to apply for 2 jobs at the very least. Oh, that's my other piece of advice. If you see a job, apply for it as soon as possible, because especially in New York, if you wait even a few days, they have gotten hundreds of applications at that point, and sometimes they will cut off applications. There's so many opportunities that I put in my like save for later. When I came back maybe a week later, the opportunity is gone, and I really regret not just like sending off the application as soon as I could instead of waiting until I was mentally prepared. No, you don't get to be mentally prepared when you're poor. I see the listing and I try to apply within 24 to 48 hours. Almost looks like beer. I realize I might actually be toasting to me leaving New York, which is sad. It does make me sad. But at the end of the day, this is not the only place where theater lives. It's not even the place where the best theater lives, if I'm being honest. New York will always be here, as long as it doesn't sink first. Right now, it's hard to think about that, but if I don't have a job by October 1st, which is when my lease renews, it's not gonna be a hard decision, you know, because my bank account will make the decision for me. All that being said, I am very hopeful. Maybe it's the alcohol, but I am super hopeful. I don't know, like the stress of it is hitting me, but it's not quite hit me yet, and I think it's because I am pretty confident that I'm going to find some position. I'm really surprised I didn't cry. It's probably because I already cried like 2 or 3 times earlier today just thinking about filming this. So I might be a little dried up right now. If you have any tips, please leave them. I'll take anything. I'll take anything I can get. I think that's it. Exit stage left.